Disagree. I think the math clearly shows that there is absolutely no chance of victory if one of you makes it in through the primary. I'd like to bring him on. It's something I've been talking about for a while, and I'm noticing that his strategy has shifted.
The biggest state, the one where they have the most, power and dominance that really support.
Part of that is none of them are the union pick. It's not like one or two or three unions.
I don't buy that fucking poll.
We're going to run them, and that's an important distinction in that it makes them less viable. In other words, they
be Swalwell, so they're going to be very strongly dominant. You're going to have those two. That's the risk here, is that we have a lockout.
Okay, so why should it be you over Chad Bianco?
Well, because I've very strongly argue that I've got the right combination of experience. I've got business experience, government reform experience, policy expertise across the board. For 3 years, it's important that we actually do what we think is right to save California from
implications. Attacking a guy like Chad Bianco, I think it's completely.
I understand that people have different reactions, but I think, I appreciate.
And it's not just a mistake. I think it's a reflection of,
I think
this whole I think people are in want change. I thought that interview was going to go. Frankly, I am not anti Steve Hilton, or at least I wasn't before just now. I was for months promoting the idea of voting for both of them. I've been sticking up for
bullshit.
Steve Hilton now.
Yes. So, Gun Owners Radio, Michael Schwartz, cries harder. Now, I watched about half. There was another debate. Somebody said there were 3 total debates. Now, there was one in a church. I don't know what part of California this was in, but you had Chad Bianco. You had Mercury. I forgot his name, first name, Mercury. You have other Republicans. Not Zaki. Zaki, I saw, runs Zaki Farms. So, seems like a nice guy. I don't think he's governor material, but doesn't seem like a corrupt piece of shit. Now, I've laid out, this is the Governator Chronicles, part 4. I didn't think I was going to do a part 4 right away, but here we are in part 4. Crying harder. Yeah. This kind of sucks for now. Here he tells the audience, okay, he tries to fool the audience into saying, well, it's about Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton running side by side to help promote the Republican Party because the Democrats have too much control. So we need Chad and we need Steve to run side by side because they're the most famous ones, and so they could help boost the Republican Party because the Republican Party is like David versus Goliath. They're overwhelmed. They're overrun. We need more Republicans. So we need you two together. This is not about that. This is about Michael promoting Chad Bianco. Even though I have already stated, besides the fact Van Miller has laid out, being a victim of being profiled by Chad Bianco. Chad Bianco's deputies running an OnlyFans, he and his wife, the deputy and his wife, taking a knee and lying about it, and then saying later on it was prayer, even though, and he was trying to fight with somebody in the comments section of this video, Michael saying, oh, well, here's the proof. And it's just another video of him saying, oh, yes, well, Chad Bianco said it was this. Chad Bianco will say whatever he wants. Doesn't matter. Now, in this video, at the end, he says, well, he's taken office. But the office that Chad Bianco holds is 3 hats. It's basically sheriff and then some sort of legislative branch. But basically, he's doing 3 jobs in one. And then he wants to be governor. Now, he's saying something about taking a knee. When you're on the job, when you're carrying a badge and a gun, you don't take a knee and you don't prayer. You have to think fast on the job. You have to make judgment calls. Sometimes you can plan on paper at your desk, and other times you fucking can't. You have to be ready to kill somebody or seriously injure somebody on that job. But the thing is that police officers are supposed to be problem solvers. Big difference between solving problems on the field, at your desk at a sheriff's station, and then doing it as a governor. And Steve Hilton has been going around everywhere in California, probably not Riverside, probably can't go there, but he's been everywhere. He's been everywhere tackling the problems of farmers, tackling the prostitute problem on Figueroa Street, tackling fire, water safety, Does he care about gun laws? I'm sure he does. But that's not the number one thing on his plate. The number one thing on his plate is the energy crisis, why people are paying more money at the pump, why people are paying more money for their housing, driving. Like there's new cars, new California laws say that 2026 cars for 2026, 2027, that they're going to have some sort of a kill switch, that if you don't pay your taxes per mile, it'll shut down your car. Wow, that's fucking brilliant. What if they're in the middle of getting hit by another car? What if they're in a dangerous position? You're going to kill switch their car. Well, that's fucking brilliant. Wow, what a thing to think of. Yes, there are things that Gavin Newsom has done right, like strike down Sacramento Bill 771, which has to do with what I'm doing right now, which is freedom of speech on the internet. But that doesn't excuse all the other shit he's done. It doesn't. Two rights don't make up for 100 wrongs. It doesn't. So I'm going on about this. So basically, this 30 minutes of tension here, because Michael is trying to act like it's not about Chad Bianco, when it really is. He wants Chad Bianco to be governor just for the gun rights. Okay, that's about the same kind of problem as the Star Trek actors for Kamala Harris to completely keep control of abortion rights. Well, abortion rights aren't going to go anywhere, and gun rights aren't going to go anywhere. People will still purchase guns. People still can go to abortion clinics. There may be limits. There's always going to be fights in Congress. There's always going to be fights in the Senate and House and state courts, the Supreme Court, as to how much rights people get. Okay? Steve cannot. The problem with some Republicans that they don't like Steve is that they want Steve to make Christianity the only religion. Everybody can carry guns. No more abortions. If people get caught at the abortion clinics, just shoot them in the head. Like that sounds like a very Confederate flag Republican thing. Unfortunately, Steve cannot greenlight that kind of thing. He knows what his limits are. As I said before, if you get rid of all the clinics, you could kiss your campaign goodbye. So you don't really bring it up too much. As far as gun rights, I trust that Steve's gonna review those gun rights, and he's gonna look them over. And he's gonna. By the way, I saw something I reposted to Steve. A woman, I think it was an elementary school teacher, got shut out of her school for praising ICE. So she got fired from her job. That's nice. So it's the opposite of what happens when somebody threatens Charlie Kirk. Ridiculous. Was after the fact or before the fact? I forgot. Anyway, I'm going on about this because this man pretends that he doesn't want Chad Bianco to be the governor, and maybe Steve Hilton would be lieutenant governor. And in California, you don't pick your lieutenant governors like presidents pick their vice president running mates. It's different for each state. Some states you can pick your running mate lieutenant governor, others you can't. In California, you cannot. So who knows who should be lieutenant governor, but it's not going to be Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton wants the top spot. He doesn't want second top spot. He wants to be the governor, and that's all there is to it. But he gets mad saying, oh, well, you're in this for politics. You're in this for being the one guy to be the... Yeah, because this is about running for one... The governor can only be one fucking position, dude. It's not for two people. There cannot be co-governors. There cannot be a trio governors or quad governors or quint governors or hex governors. There can only be one governor. One person in charge of the state. That's how that fucking works. Chad Bianco is not governor material, period. I don't even think he could be mayor material. You know, if he wanted to, he could try to run for mayor of Riverside and see how far he'd get. But he doesn't aim small. He's got problems with jails. People are dying in the jails that he runs. He's got all kinds of problems. Okay? He lied about things. It's not that he knelt. If he took a knee for BLM on his own time and not city time and hugged people at church, or, if there were protesters outside of his church and he was in dress clothes on his own time, not the same thing as when you're in fucking uniform, trying to keep the peace, trying to solve the problems, but always anticipating escalation and really being ready to shoot somebody when the time comes. Okay? He doesn't. Steve Hilton does not hate Chad Bianco because he's a sheriff. He hates Chad Bianco professionally, not personally, professionally, because the man did not show up and would not show up for the third debate. Okay? So Chad Bianco showed up for one debate, and that was the one for the church. I've only watched half of that debate between Chad Bianco, Mercury, and other Republicans there. Steve Hilton still killed it. Steve Hilton could rally that crowd of people at that church. That was on January 10th. So he got people riled up. He knows what to do. The way I sound right now, that's the way he sounds when he's talking. And I have no business in politics, but I know that he does. And so when you're passionate about something, whether it's politics or storytelling or YouTubing or skiing or skateboarding, you got to bring that. And I think that Steve brings this game face on. Chad, who is currently in a lawsuit against California for some kind of corruption, but that's not the whole point. Chad doesn't have it within him. This dude right here, all he cares about is one fucking thing. Just like the abortion on the left, he cares about carrying his gun out in public. Then push for a law. If you know the right people and they can get you to push a law for, present a bill with a lawyer, get a lawyer, say, hey, here's what needs to be done for carrying concealed weapons. I think Steve Hilton can do this. Here's all the, here's A, B, here's all the articles, and here's the sections of what this bill would look like. Talk to a lawyer, and they can get in touch with a congressman who could get in touch with the lieutenant governor and then governor, which should be Steve Hilton by that time, and present your case. Why sit there and bitch about Chad Bianco? People see Chad's outfit, they see his belt buckle, they see that he's a sheriff, and they say, "Oh, this is a sheriff. He means business. He's no nonsense." Well, you're looking at what he is, not what he's about. That's what you have to fucking do. Now, I cannot stop anybody from voting for who they want. You got to vote with your conscience. But don't vote for Chad. Don't vote for that fucker because he's a sheriff. Vote for him because he has done his job to the best of his ability, and he's doing the same amount of work or more than Steve Hilton. Remember I told you on X when Steve Hilton was posing with Megyn Kelly, if you're not a shark 50 feet from the pier on Monday morning with blood in your teeth, you've already fucked up. Chad is fucked up. Okay? By not showing up, he is fucked up. Zaki, same deal. Mercury, same deal. None of those Republicans that were there at the church debating with Steve Hilton were there. Steve was the only one. Maybe Chad promised. Maybe Chad told Steve, "Hey, Steve, I'm going to be at that debate with all those Democrats. I'm going to be there at that debate with bells on. You're going to see me there. You're going to see me kick ass." And he didn't show up. He didn't show up. So maybe he double-crossed. Maybe he promised to be. So, he held his tongue about Chad Bianco for the longest time. Most of his attacks were directed at Gavin Newsom. But this is this isn't a very important election. This is about getting a Republican in office. And I think Steve can do it. And I know he can do it. And you and your single issues for voting is not going to do any good. Chad has to prove that he's worth more than just gun ownership when he goes up there. If he cannot promise other things more than Steve, better than Steve can, he's done. The same goes for Mercury, Zaki, some of these other people. There's I don't know how many Republicans were there at that church. A lot of Republicans, they all spoke well. But from what I could tell from the other candidates for Republican office for governor, they just kind of really lay it on thick. They really want to sell you a product. And Steve is just mad. That's the difference between the way Steve spoke and the way the other Republicans spoke. They're trying to sell you a product like they're a car salesman, and Steve is just pissed off. And he's been researching and he's been going around. He's been busting his ass. So good on Steve. He's like the Ross Perot that we need for California. Let's go, Steve. Do something different, California.